Fourth oral question, Baroness Morgan of Coates.
My Lords, I beg leave to ask a question standing in my name on the order paper.
My Lords, tackling violence against women and girls on the railway network is a priority for the Department, with both my honourable friend, the Minister for Local Transport, and officials meeting with their counterparts in the Home Office regularly. These meetings have been to coordinate and develop plans for tackling violence against women and girls on public transport, including trains, which will be a significant contributor to the success of the Safer Streets mission, part of the Government's plan for change.
Thank the Noble Lord the Minister very much indeed for his answer. Will the forthcoming bill relating to the creation of Great British Railways contain a clear statement of the Government's responsibility after nationalisation for the prevention of violence against women and girls on trains? And does the Noble Lord the Minister agree that the potential for violence against women and girls on our railways needs to be prevented by measures such as decent lighting, better design of trains and stations, rather than being dealt with by the British Transport Police after the event?
Taking the Noble Baroness's second point first, I completely agree that it's highly desirable to design out those features of railway travel which might contribute to any opportunity for violence against women and girls. My belief is we don't need to wait for the Railways Bill to do that, only to note that Great British Railways will have increasing control over the design of trains, and in particular standards of design, lighting and closed-circuit television, which I think she's referring to, and I think it will be very welcome because it is quite clear that although the British Transport Police are absolutely committed to tackling violence against women and girls, designing out opportunities for that to happen are a real priority.
My Lords, the British Transport Police does have a key role in ensuring our public transport remains safe, and their current funding in part comes from train operating companies. What discussions has the Minister had with the Treasury to ensure the British Transport Police is properly resourced as the railway moves into public ownership?
The British Transport Police is governed by the British Transport Police Authority, which is independent, and there are no statutory powers that I have or the government has to intervene. But nevertheless, the authority decided that the budgetary increase for 25-26 would be 5.9%, which is significant. And I met the authority, the British Transport Police, including the Chief Constable, train operators, Network Rail and Transport for London, 10 days ago in order to ensure that the BTP's independent operational plans maximise the best use of the budget in those circumstances, and in particular contribute to reducing violence against women and girls.
My Lords.
The slogan "See it, say it, sorted" works best when you've seen it and said it, there's someone qualified on the train to sort it, and that there should be an increase, indeed a guarantee, of someone properly trained being on every train so that there is a reduction in crime.
The opportunity for railway travellers to report crime through the 61016 phone number isn't, of course, limited to what's going on the train. It's limited to what they see from the time they enter the network to the time they leave it. Many trains do have one or more than one person on the train, but equally those trains that don't generally stop fairly frequently, and in those cases there is the opportunity of summoning police or other aid to the train.
Lords, two policies would help to tackle violence against women and girls on trains. Firstly, a ban on the sale and consumption of alcohol on public transport. Secondly, ensuring that railway staff are present on platforms during scheduled train services. If the Minister agrees, when can we expect to see these changes implemented?
I thank my noble friend. It's quite a long time ago, but I was in fact responsible for the original drink ban on the London Underground, which was enacted then by second Mayor of London. And it was by and large successful. It still is by and large successful, though enforcement is always an issue. It isn't practicable to have somebody in attendance on a railway platform for every station in Great Britain. Many of them have very few travellers. Those that are busy generally do, and I would agree with the sentiment that it's desirable to have somebody on the platform. In fact, it's better to have somebody around on the station than it is in a booking office, to be frank. But those are discussions which the previous government didn't manage very well, and now this government will think about how it best staffs stations in order to make sure that all passengers feel comfortable and safe when travelling by train.
My Lords, I appreciate that the British Transport Police is responsible to an independent authority, but when one looks at their annual report, one sees many pages devoted to net zero and diversity and inclusion, but actually nothing that I can find specifically about how they're tackling operationally violence against women and girls. Does the Noble Lord the Minister think that the British Transport Police have got the balance right, or is there scope for improvement?
I can absolutely assure the Noble Lord that violence against women and girls is a top priority for the British Transport Police. When I had the meeting that I previously referred to with the authority and the BTP, including the Chief Constable, she was very vigorous. The Chief Constable was very vigorous in making sure that everybody knew that a significant proportion of the total resources of the British Transport Police is in fact devoted to violence against women and girls. I should be only too happy to ask the Chief Constable to brief the Noble Lord personally about how much effort they're putting into this subject, and I hope that he'll take me up on that offer.
I thought made a good point about alcohol control. And as the Minister said, he introduced it on the Underground. But I don't think it needs someone at every station to prevent people taking it on. There are staff on many trains who could stop them drinking from it. And there are other people who could intervene. So I think the ban could be an effective thing. And second, I suppose it's just to keep an open mind about the possibility. Many of the people who are committing these offences are recidivists. But they seem to have an unrestricted right to book a ticket on a train. And I just wonder what restrictions might be placed on their access to a public transport system that would prevent the victims suffering in the way that they do quite regularly.
I thank the Noble Lord for his observations about alcohol, but of course travel on the railway means many different things to different people. A 15 or 20-minute journey is probably certainly tolerable and probably preferable without alcohol. But a 5-hour journey from one end of the country to the other probably isn't. Now there are provisions to ban the sale and consumption of alcohol on trains, for example, going to and from football matches. So that has been thought through, but I think it's rather draconian to prevent people on long journeys from relaxing. The behaviour that the Noble Lord refers to, of course, and the sorts of people he's talking about are people who should be closely monitored in our society. I'm not sure that I can easily see how it is that one could prevent such people from buying tickets, but it might be that the advent of modern technology makes their presence easier to identify, and certainly easier to identify if they commit offences, including terrible offences against women and girls.
Well, Lords, can the Minister inform the House how the Railway Police and the National Police Service work together to coordinate activities to stop this on trains?
Indeed, I thank the Noble Lord for that. The British Transport Police, of course, covers the whole country, so their liaison is necessarily very diverse across all of the Home Office police forces and those in Scotland and Wales. They do a good job. In fact, a previous question this afternoon referred to County Lines drug trafficking, and in recognition of the national function of the British Transport Police, they were given 4.3 million they have been given 4.3 million for the next financial year by the Home Office to fund their County Lines task force, which works absolutely with the Home Office police forces in terms of seamless identification of people travelling across what would otherwise be police boundaries, and catching and convicting criminals, both for county lines and other offences.
My lords, I'm old enough to remember a phenomenon called the ladies-only compartment. And I'm not alone, I gather. And I was required to travel in that compartment as a schoolgirl. Is the creation of a possible safety zone for women and girls on our trains something that perhaps might be considered under the design-out approach to which the noble Lord, the Minister, referred earlier?
I would say that with modern railway rolling stock, it's far more difficult to partition off relatively small places. I too am old enough to remember women-only compartments, but compartment trains were very undesirable in a whole pile of ways, including the relative isolation of people in different compartments. These days, open carriages, whilst they might not always be welcome if you're reading a good novel, at least allow people to be in relatively open circumstances, and hence you would like to think it would discourage people. I think that the Noble Baroness's suggestion is quite a difficult one, given the configuration of modern railway rolling stock. But if we go back to the Noble Baroness Morgan of Coates' original point, actually designing out those nooks and crannies in railway compartments, those dimly lit places on railway stations, is where we ought to go in order to reduce the opportunities for terrible violence against women and girls.
My Lords, that concludes oral questions for today.